Hello and good day, everyone. I am Desiree Jean A. Igdang, and for today's discussion, we will talk about classroom discourse and interaction analysis. Classroom discourse is the verbal and nonverbal communication that occurs in an educational setting, including language used by teachers and students, as well as interactions between them. So, as mentioned, it's not only limited to verbal communication, but also written or nonverbal communication. So, it is a dynamic process for sharing ideas, learning, and developing critical thinking through both traditional and modern approaches, such as teacher-dominated model versus a collaborative one. So the key components and characteristics of classroom discourse include linguistic elements such as the spoken language of teachers and students, including questions, responses, and explanations. It also includes non-linguistic elements such as paralinguistic features like gestures, facial expressions, body language, and even silence, which can also convey meaning. On the other hand, interaction analysis is a research technique for systematically observing, recording, and interpreting naturally occurring interactions such as conversations or classroom exchanges. So, it is actually one of the research techniques that we can use in our future studies. And it involves coding verbal and nonverbal behaviors to identify patterns and make valid inferences about the communication dynamics, often using certain frameworks to quantify aspects like teacher student communication. So, the goal is to understand the context, purpose, and meaning of the interaction, from identifying the data requirements to different processes to improving teaching strategies. Now, there are actually different types of classroom discourse. First is the teacher student discourse. This is the most traditional type where the teacher leads the conversation through questions, explanations, and directions. The second one is the student to student discourse. This is a communication among students which can occur in pairs, small groups, or whole class discussion. And lastly, the student self discourse. Students thinking aloud or talking to themselves, a form of internal or external monologic speech that can aid in problem solving. Language discourse and interaction analysis are crucial for teaching because they improve student engagement, language proficiency, and critical thinking skills by providing a framework for understanding how talk functions in the classroom. And now that we are done discussing the definitions of classroom discourse and interaction analysis, let us proceed to the methods and or frameworks that we can use in doing an interaction analysis. So here we have provided four frameworks, namely the initiation response, feedback or evaluation or IRF and IRE, Sinclair and Coulthard's model, Walsh Classroom Interactional Competence, and Flanders Interaction Analysis Category Systems. So the initiation response feedback or IRF is a basic model of a three-part conversational sequence where the teacher asks a question, a student answers, and the teacher provides feedback or evaluation. In many classroom settings, the terms IRF and IRE are often used interchangeably because evaluation is the most common form of feedback. However, the broader concept of IRF allows for more interaction than just an assessment, as the teacher can provide feedback that is not just a simple judgment of right or wrong. And with that being said, the difference between the IRF and IRE lies in what the teacher does after the student answers. Let's take a look at this example. A teacher asks what is the main idea, that is the initiation, and the student responds, the main idea is about climate change. And the teacher then may then say, that's a good start, but can you be more specific about the main idea? So in this example, the teacher actually encourages for more information from the student instead of just accepting the answer of the student. In this example, the teacher asks, what is the capital of France? And the student answers, Paris. The teacher then replies, "That's correct." So this is an example of IRE because the teacher no longer asks for more information but instead just validated the answer of the student by saying that it is correct. The next framework is Sinclair and Coltan's model. So, this is actually one of the most influential frameworks for analyzing classroom discourse, and it explains how teacher student interactions are structured and how meaning is organized during lessons. The model breaks down classroom talk into five hierarchical levels, namely the interaction, transaction, exchange, move, and act. Consider this example. So, an interaction refers to the entire lesson or a major segment, while a transaction is part of the lesson that focuses on a specific task or objective. Within each transaction, an exchange is a complete unit of communication, often following the IRF or initiation response feedback pattern, which shows how teachers involve students and guide responses. Exchanges are composed of moves, functional steps like asking a question, responding, or giving feedback, and each move consists of acts, which is the smallest units of meaning, such as eliciting information, providing explanations, or acknowledging student contributions. So, this hierarchical structure helps educators see how classroom talk is sequenced, how teachers maintain control, and how they create opportunities for students to participate and learn. The next framework is Walsh Classroom Competence or ICC. So, Steve Walsh argued that it is essential for teachers to develop their own interactional competence by placing interaction at the heart of learning to promote learning and learning opportunities. Walsh's concept of interactional classroom competence emphasizes that learning is not only cognitive but also social, meaning students can learn effectively through participation, engagement, and interaction with both their teachers and their peers. Additionally, Walsh believes that teachers need to know how to use language, when to use certain interactional moves, and why use them so that learning opportunities are maximized. So, here are the key ideas of ICC. First is that interaction shapes learning. So, learning is both cognitive and social, meaning students learn through participation, engagement, and interaction with their teachers and classmates. Next is teachers must be interactionally competent, meaning teachers with high ICC use appropriate language, ask thought provoking questions, give supportive feedback, and manage turn taking, create a safe space for ideas, and adjust their talk to their learners' need. Next is ICC connects to teaching quality. Understanding classroom interaction helps teachers improve engagement, clarify explanations, encourage more student talk, and identify learning moments, and eventually reflect on their teaching practices. And lastly, the classroom context mode, which actually involves managerial mode, which means giving instructions and organizing the class. Materials mode, meaning working with tasks or textbook input. Skills and systems mode, teaching grammar, vocabulary, or skills. And lastly, classroom context mode, meaning open discussion and idea sharing. So, according to Walsh, effective teachers know when and how to shift between these modes. The last framework for interaction analysis is Flanders' interaction analysis category system. So it is a method for observing and systematically coding a classroom's verbal interactions between teachers and students into 10 categories. So if FIACS focuses on three main areas, namely teacher talk, student talk, and silence or confusion. FIACS is useful because it shows whether classroom communication is teacher-centered, meaning it is dominated by lecturing, giving directions, or evaluating responses, or it is learner-centered, meaning more student ideas and questions are and discussions. This system is widely used to improve teaching strategies and promote active learning and reflect on classroom discourse. So this is Flanders' 10 categories. The first seven categories are based on the first main area, which is the teacher talk. So first is accept feelings, meaning teacher acknowledges or clarifies student emotions. Next is praises or encouragement. The teacher gives positive feedbacks like good answer or nice effort. Next is accepts or uses ideas of students, meaning teacher repeats, rephrases, or builds on a student's idea. The fourth one is asks questions, where the teacher asks questions to check understanding or provoke thinking. Fifth is lecturing, where the teacher explains, give facts, or provides information. Sixth is giving directions. This is where teacher tells students what to do, like for example, the teacher informs or instructs the students to work in pairs or to open their books. And lastly, the criticizing or justifying authority. This is where teacher corrects student behavior or explains rules. So for example, when the teacher says stop talking, or when the teacher says you must follow instructions. Now, for the next categories, the student talk response. This is where students respond to the teacher, usually within the teacher's structure. And for the student talk initiation, this is where students initiate ideas, ask questions, or express opinions voluntarily. Now, for the last category, which is the silence or confusion, this is a moment of pauses, quiet moments, confusion, or situations where interaction is unclear. Now, those are the methods or the frameworks that we can use in doing an interaction analysis. And that would be all for my discussion. Thank you so much for listening.